Good morning, New York. Good morning, Bitcoin. This is the market update. What should you do next? Will 100K hold? What should you do if it doesn't? Will 100K hold? What should you do if it does? What are the levels on the upside? Should you sell? My answer, no. Why? Because I'm buying. That's why. If I'm wrong, I'll lose money. That is all I can tell you about what I'm doing at 100K, but we can discuss the charts. We can discuss distribution, like did whales sell? Did they wreck the market? You know, did you know that Michael Saylor's average price for Bitcoin bought this year is 114K? So, Mike's taking, he's taking a little 10% decline, a 10% correction on everything he's bought this year. Now, Mike's holding in okay, but what about these Bitcoin Treasury Companies, and have they already puked? Is that what this decline was really all about? These institutions that got hyper leveraged to buy Bitcoin at the high, trying to be like Michael Saylor, only to just get forced out of the market. Now, washing out FOMO. Oh, wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. When you wash out any weak players, which frankly is exactly what's happened in Bitcoin. How many times did they try to take it down to 100 yesterday? Twice. A formation that I don't think I've seen anywhere except in a book on like 4-hour candlestick charts, a tweezer's bottom. So all the way down to 100, all the way back, and then all the way down to 100 in the next bar and all the way back. Crazy. There were buyers down there at 100K, just like there are buyers in privacy where you have a full-on alt season. And I am proud to say that somebody actually put tweets out this morning saying that privacy is saving their portfolio. Now, on Zcash and privacy, stay with us. Don't go anywhere, because we're going to discuss the right Bitcoin levels. We're going to discuss what's on the Ethereum charts, and we're going to discuss privacy, because privacy is now in the newspaper, right? There's a big CoinDesk or Cointelegraph article of like, why Zcash and privacy tokens are doing well. I'm like, now there's no sign of a Zcash top yet. Okay, yet. But, you could have a blow off top in Zcash and then the bid could switch to Bitcoin. That's possible. Or it could just not stop. Just be like flat out alt season. As a matter of fact, I did a Twitter thread today, which I will get into in a second. Zcash and Dash are actually leading a bull market. So what you're witnessing is a bull market in progress, with Bitcoin finishing a consolidation and dragging alts down with it. But the bull market is effectively on because of what the privacy coins are doing. And of course, events in New York City, whether you believe it or you don't believe it, just add a little bit of temporary fuel to the privacy narrative. Now, you do have to be a little careful about sell the fact. It maybe rotate out of privacy into Bitcoin and come back to privacy later. That's possible. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We will make sure we go over all of that. And naturally, before we go over all that, this is a good time to remind you to hit the like button early and often. Subscribe to the channel. We are on every day at 8 a.m. Eastern, going off from the YouTube Shorts feed. Conveniently, you can get this on your phone while you're lying in bed with the covers over your head, because you can't look at your portfolio, go to work, or socialize because you're paralyzed with fear about the market. And if that's the way you feel, then you definitely want to hit the subscribe button. Like people like SJ, Crypto Future, Routine Cheese, Shelly Farmer Allen, the one-woman hedge fund, welcome, right? Cisco, a member, T-Bone, a Spartan Colonel, and of course, MJ Hits and Bull Runner. Now, what is the most important story that you are not hearing about? All right. So 2 weeks ago, I wanted to talk about events in New York City. Now everyone is talking about events in New York City. I want to talk about something different. I want to talk about something in New York City, but I want to talk about what's going on at Wall Street. Namely, that insurance companies are supposedly walking around asking Wall Street what they're going to value or how they can get the best marked to market price on what they call private credit access. Okay, I'm sorry, private credit assets. People have made loans. Some people have defaulted. It's very difficult to get dollar liquidity. They have started buying dollars in the foreign exchange market. It's tough to get a dollar loan. The government shutdown has exposed problems with bad loans. This is called bad loans. Okay. So when banks have bad loans, sometimes they have to sell assets. This happened in 2009, ironically, with gold, right? As the Fed is like spinning up the printer for a multi-year cycle, back in 2009, there were a couple episodes where gold got hit, right? Not terribly, but it got hit because people had to raise cash. In this case, banks may wind up having to sell. Maybe I don't know how much crypto they own, but crypto is very sensitive to these things. And maybe they have to sell bubble stocks. I don't know. All I know is that there are substantial losses out there, and the Fed's got to plug the hole because whatever's going on with banks is probably bigger than anyone thinks. And then you sprinkle a little like Zoran on top of that pizza, and you have a fantastic argument for crypto. I mean, you got three reasons, right? You got stock market overvaluation, you got credit stress, and you know what? The people just told the current administration that, you know what, you didn't keep any of our promises and it's not okay. Which to me means the only thing that they can do to show that they're competent and they actually care is get crypto legislation passed and give us crypto everything. It's easy for them to give us crypto because, you know, the administration itself, the people in the administration are long out the wazoo. So they can keep the crypto promises because they own it themselves. So all things point towards crypto naturally, as everyone is selling it. Fear greed is at 20. You know, Kramer is crying that, you know, oh my God, the government shutdown is bad for equities. Like they're coming to this conclusion now after 35 days, after pumping NVIDIA and all these related stocks like the, you know, the guys that do the monitoring of society. I'm like, wait a minute, dude. The problem isn't with the stonks themselves. It's the entities like the banks that may have to sell the stonks. Now, of course, stonks are wildly overvalued. Yeah, okay, whatever. That's not a reason to sell stonks. It might be. Really what it is a reason to buy crypto because crypto is what I call the solution asset. It's the solution asset, meaning the way to vent all the pressure in the system normally would be to crash everything. Crash stocks, crash the credit instruments, crash the banks. I don't really like certain banks. I think they got serious problems. But really, if you want to vent the pressure in the system, the only way to do that is for crypto to go up, which is so ironic that, I don't know, Bitcoin Treasury Companies, whales, you know, I don't know, Wintermute, you know, all of this forced selling. Like the people who sold were forced to sell. You know, maybe there was some large players that took profits. Okay, maybe. Yeah, all right, fine. You know, Michael Saylor's average price was $114K for this year, as I brought up earlier. Now, why did he pay $114K? Because that's where the liquidity and the financing were. You couldn't get the financing to buy the kind of Bitcoin that he bought earlier. So he bought it when it was available. You went from one strong hand, a whale, over to Michael Saylor. Fine. What's the problem? Right? Bitcoin Treasury Companies puked and had to liquidate. Okay. You know, weak hands out. Weak hands out. Now, that turns around and becomes an incredibly bullish thing. And here's what I mean. Bitcoin is corrected 20% off of its high. Do you realize that in equities, they drool over a 20% correction? Because it always looks like the end of the world at the bottom. But everybody in equities knows that if you bought NVIDIA every time it went down 20% over the last 10 years, you are a millionaire 3 times over. If you bought every 20% correction in NVIDIA, you just saw it down 20% and you bought it. And that's what people in stonks do, especially retail. Ironically, retail just goes, oh, wow, hedge funds, fear, greed at zero. Oh, awesome. I mean, literally, it's like, you sign up at Charles Schwab and they give you the ignore the noise speech. Ignore the noise. Down 20%, buy it. Bitcoin goes down 20%. We're all selling. Everyone's puking it below 100K. Everyone's losing their mind. No, it's a dream. And people in stonks are going to look at this and go, wow, they were selling Bitcoin down 20%. Banks have problems. Stock market's overvalued. Michael Burry has got his entire fund in NVIDIA and Palantir puts. Okay. Maybe NVIDIA and Palantir go down. They probably should. But it would be pretty funny if those instruments range traded, slumped, or went down for one day, and the thing that moved was Bitcoin, and it went straight from 100 to 200. I know, crazy. No one wants to talk about that except me. Except me. You know when the best day to talk about 200K is? On the day it went through 100K twice in one day. That's the day when you talk about 200K. Because if you're going to be crazy and you're going to say, I'm buying and I'm not selling, you must believe in 200K. Because if you're selling, you must believe in, I don't know what, 75. We're going to go attack Michael Saylor's overall average price at 60K. What are we doing? Right? The best time to talk about 200 is now. Okay. Fear always spikes in crypto, obviously on a 20% decline in Bitcoin, because most alts get wrecked and most alts were still dormant anyway, except, of course, the privacy sector. Right? Now, if you follow sector analysis, you will have sectors that lead the market out, frequently the most speculative sectors. And I've discussed this with Zcash and Dash. These Bitcoin forks, you know what, folks? If you had a bag of all privacy coins, you're experiencing alt season and laughing at this decline elsewhere. Now, money may start to rotate out. Maybe not today. But alt season has happened. In privacy. No one wants to admit it because everyone hates privacy and everyone missed it. Naturally, except for our Patreon group, right? The Antivirus Universe, everyone listening to the VIP member podcast. I mean, I just found something. We were recommending the ARRR coin, our pirate chain. There's not that many of these coins out there. There isn't. There is not that many of these coins out there. We just published a list in Patreon Platinum, top privacy coins and what we want to buy on a dip and where the support levels are. It's going to happen. Now, PowerPoint returns. I know, shocking. I'm actually going to try to pull off PowerPoint on the shorts feed because it is the one chart market update. Look at that. Beautiful. Okay. So in April of 2025, the bottom in Bitcoin was 13% below the 50-day moving average. That was 75K. So here's the blue line. That's the 50-day moving average. Okay. And the bottom just so happened to be 13% below the 50-day moving average. And you had a lot of consternation. You had a lot of chop. You had a chunky down move, right? Before that final puke. We go over here. What's different? Bitcoin is 13% below its 50-day moving average. The 50 days at Michael Saylor's average price around 113. And 13% below that, if my math is correct, you should have a bottom. That's it. Have a good day. It's like your elevator market update. Hey, did you know the last bottom was 13% below the 50-day moving average? Really? Where are we now versus the 50-day moving average? Oh, it was 13% below it at 100K. No wonder everyone was buying. Oh, that's my floor. Ding. That's it. That's it. And everyone, with alts, because alts are dormant and alts are down and people are wrecked. I understand that. I get it. All right. But, at the moment where you feel the worst, and I think a lot of people felt the worst yesterday, there's no oxygen at the abyss. None. Right? It's hard to breathe at the abyss, and it's hard to breathe at the top of Mount Everest, right? You don't stay in either one of those places too long. Yesterday, it was the abyss. It looked like it was going to zero, right? You had this awful new moon thing, some negative Gann work. You had whatever the news was out of New York City which was frankly in poly market for 3 months, but everybody decided to freak out about it yesterday. That event was most likely by the fact, right? Now, in terms of social disorder and all kinds of other things, good. I mean, whatever happens in New York City will be a walking advertisement for cryptocurrency. Period. You know, everything that happens in the streets, everything the guy says, everything his opponents say, right? You know, the current administration acting in such a way where something like that not only happened, but happened in a landslide. Oh my God. This is the Satoshi white paper. I mean, what part of like the Bitcoin bonanza are you not getting right now? Really? It's like if Michael Saylor was at a speech at a Bitcoin conference going, you know what? There was going to be a day where, you know, you'd have social disorder in the financial capital of the world because they would pivot to the far left. There would come a day where no one would listen to the current administration. The government was shut down for 40 days. Banks and insurance companies are in trouble with bad loans. The Fed is out of emergency money and may not be able to fund or print like they used to. I mean, if Michael Saylor was saying that with his orange tie on at a Bitcoin conference, I mean, you would be grabbing your phone. I mean, you'd run out of the place to get better cell phone reception to hit the green button, yet everyone is selling. This is what's unbelievable, right? And this is classic. You know, you have sector leadership, you have arguably a bull market in starting, you have alt season in privacy, and then you have all these macro things all at once, and everyone is negative. Everyone is negative. And it's not just everyone else. I mean, do you know how hard it is to do a live stream? Like when the computer that I'm using to figure out titles said that my thumbnail should say never sell. I'm like, can I actually write that? By the way, this is not investment advice. This is an opinion show. But I'm like, how crazy is that? That's pretty freaking crazy, considering you're going to have chart damage and whatnot if it actually closed below 99K, which is a good segue into, Bitcoin technical levels. So here is the chart nerd setup. People love this word. The setup. So you do not want to see a close below 99K. Okay. At that point, risk would be 95K. You are hoping that, unfortunately, the number of the beast holds in stocks. That would be 6660. Okay. So if the stock market's got like 1 to 2%, it can go down. And hopefully crypto doesn't shatter at that point. But if there's a massive stock market decline, it would be a glorious day if Bitcoin went up in the face of that. I guess we'd have to see. Now, what would be glorious is if Bitcoin could take out like 102.7, or, let's just call it 103 to keep it even. Taking out 102.7 or 103, I think, on a closing basis helps put Bitcoin in the clear. It helps make a retest of 99 or 100 much less likely. Much less likely. Okay. And then, you'll hear this everywhere that if you start reclaiming things like 104, then you can have much higher prices. Much higher prices. Because again, I don't think anybody really understands why this went down. Like it could have been Wintermute, Bitcoin Treasury Companies, and this is crypto moving back and forth between big institutions. And we just all got caught. We just all got caught in the ocean waves. We don't know what happened. When we do, it'll go up. But there were articles this morning about Bitcoin Treasury Companies having to puke out the market. There were also articles this morning that you did, in fact, get distribution by whales where bigger players were taking profits. But again, who was absorbing most of that supply? Stronger hands. Retail may have FOMO'd in, but they sold out. They gave up, especially with the way this traded over the last 2 days. That goes back to this whole down 20% thing. I mean, the 50-day moving average in Bitcoin is at 113K. I mean, you can go up 10%, and still not be above the 50-day moving average. To me, that feels like a lot of room to move higher. Now, on that subject, okay, what is the sector rotation here? Okay, there was a $1 billion liquidation in ETH. You know, there's also been a DeFi hack at Balancer, which has been, you know, kind of a story that's been underreported. So conveniently, like I said, you have a leveraged washout. That's the treasury companies. You have the Binance situation, and you had a hack, right? So you got all this panic and forced selling and lack of confidence in the system. And I understand those things are awful, right? But they've always been a buy. Like, it's like, buy the hack, buy the liquidation, buy the negative political or geopolitical events, right? And then basically pray that the stock market doesn't completely shatter. Because right now there's very little fear in stonks. There's huge fear in crypto. It's the opposite of what happened back in April, right? Back in April, fear, greed in stonks went to zero on a 20% correction, 20, 25%. Fear, greed went to zero. Everybody was calling for a recession. Everyone said it was over, literally. And now crypto just turned around and did the same thing. Now, crypto back then, crypto went down, and that was nasty. But I don't think we ever got as fully hysterical as they did in equities. And I'll never forget it. It was a Goldman article going, customers are coming in and they're trying to get short what they called every macro product. It's like, wait a minute. Will this instrument go down if the economy goes down or stocks go down? Yes. Okay, good. I'm shorting it. Or, you know, I'm making bets against the stock market and the economy. They couldn't stop. This feels like we just went through the same thing. I mean, the fear yesterday was off the charts. You know, each of the last 2 days, I had to take a break from whatever I was doing and sleep for 3 hours, right? In order to stand up here and go never sell as my thumbnail. Now, of course, you want to manage risk. You do not want to get wrecked. A close below 99K would be bad. And, you know, you want to be as disciplined as possible. That said, you do not want to let them just run you out of this market. You don't, if you get stopped out, you get stopped out. If you get run out, that's on you, right? And you don't want this thing to go to 100 or 200, 200K, right? 200K. And then, you know, you missed it. You missed the low. You don't want to miss this low because of the time of year it is, right? Crypto normally does good in the fourth quarter. I mean, that was the October argument that didn't exactly pan out. You know, massive victory lap by bears yesterday across the board. You don't want to miss it, man. I'm not going to get negative at 100K. If they stop me out, they stop me out. That's it. But on LuxAlgo, all the 4-hour charts, you got every single bottoming signal you could have. You have weakening downside momentum. You have their version of the 13 bottom reversal signal on the oscillator matrix. You have all the big cryptos in their discount zone on 4-hour charts, which is it's just a pretty high time frame, right? I mean, you know, it's the highest intraday time frame that most people look at. Okay, Big Rich, thinking like me, wants to get after render. Dude, I absolutely want to get after this, man. I want to get after the whole AI trade, right? Like, I can tell you right now, it's like I move stuff around just to be able to get after render, Tau, and Akash. Like, just get after it, because Bitcoin and all this AI stuff is on sale. Okay, so the render chart is unbelievable. Big Rich is asking for levels, and basically the way this looks, it looks like the level is right now, because, you know, you have a 13 and a 9 bottom and a tweezers bottom and a hammer on the same candlestick. I mean, that's crazy, right? So I don't know. It feels like the level is right here. You know, the ultimate level, if it recovers above, is 235. You know, support is probably, I don't know, support is probably at where the first wick stopped at 186. It's currently at 189. So render minutia aside, there are opportunities here in themes right now. You saw what happened when the privacy theme took off. And I ask you this, is that the only theme that's going to take off? I saw a massive up spike in Aave yesterday, I believe. Got a little notification. That's one of the coins on our spike list. You know, you had a very nice rally off the lows, and I don't really think Aave even really puked that much. I mean, it did, but it feels like DeFi wants to come screaming back. Because you know, don't make no mistake about it, folks. You got problems with banks out there. You do. And, you know, we had 155 to 160 in our Gann model in Patreon. And, you know, Solana wicked down to 145 just to make sure everyone understood. But currently it's at 160. And I will tell you about the technical analysis of this and how it reminds me of the equities puke from 2011. So in 2011, we had the threat that European governments couldn't pay their bills, right? We had a solvency crisis. Laughably looks not totally similar, but you know, this US government shutdown reminds me of sovereign troubles and everyone selling as a result of that. Now, in that particular case, equities were going down hard. So there was a support level where there should have been a bottom. There was an overshoot of that level. And then there was an overshoot of that level. And then there was another one. So there was an overshoot of an overshoot of an overshoot, right? Bitcoin realistically should have probably stopped at 104. It should have. And then, you know, you had this move to like 103. And then they went and did it again below 100. So it was like 104, 103, boom. Or actually, let's say it again. Support at 107 should have held. So let's start over. Support at 107 should have held. So you went through 107. Then it should have been 104, and it should have held at 104. And then it went through 100. You had a double overshoot, right? Every single support point got broken. Every single psychological level got broken. You had an overshoot of an overshoot. And when that happens, like in 2011, like I maintained my employment for 3 years because I sat there and I wrote this little email, and the market has just gotten destroyed, and equities people love buying the dip. They love it. And as soon as I put this thing out that said, this is the overshoot of the overshoot, all the sales forces went out, the trading desks bought, and then magically, I had no idea this was going to happen. Most stocks were up 30% in 5 days. Most stocks unwound the entire, you know, what they call pigs decline. That was Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain, right? They unwound it like that. You had a year's worth of gains in 5 days. You know, everybody treated me like a hero, and I appreciated that. But what they never saw was that I was sitting at home because I worked from home. I was sitting at home with my eyes covered going, I'm going to send this email out about being constructive, because I was kind of always the guy that caught the tops, the bearish guy. And I'm going to send this out, and it's going to be the end of me. It's going to go to zero. Everyone's going to laugh at me. No one's ever going to listen to me again. I can't believe I'm sending this out. This thing looks like it's going to zero. And it turned out to be miraculously constructive. Now, I don't know if there are people on YouTube trying to make everybody feel better by saying these type of things. But again, this feels like an overshoot of an overshoot. Okay. Big Rich wants to look at Solana versus Bitcoin. Okay. I can tell you right now what any of these type of, like, you know, big altcoins versus Bitcoin are going to look at. And they're going to look just like Solana, except I think the wicks, as I'm showing, will be even bigger. And again, these 13 bottom signals, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. They're on the daily charts. Like, this is Solana versus Bitcoin. You see this giant 13 here? Yeah, that means we're done. So what you really need, well, we're not totally done. What you need is a good upside reversal. You know, everybody wants to buy a wick down, but what you really want is to get the wick down and then to get follow through on the upside. That's why in equities in 2011, the rally was so unbelievable, because you got the spike down. And then when it started to go up, people were more than willing to pay higher prices. Now, has everybody who's needed to sell been liquidated? I don't know. We don't even know who liquidated to begin with. That does bother me a little bit. But if all of this is changing hands between institutions, and, you know, the market has got privacy on the front cover of the newspaper, right? Everyone thinks it's over for Tom Lee. I'm waiting for it's over for Michael Saylor. It may be over for some of the Bitcoin Treasury companies. You've got everything in the news that you would need for a contrarian bottom. I'm just, you know, I'm just waiting. And it's funny. I just got a message from somebody who put out a tweet, put out a meme of a bunch of guys in a dorm room that was just filled with candy bar wrappers and soda bottles playing video games. And some guy says, Michael Saylor is on the cover of Forbes, which is in January. Do you realize that this means the asset class has topped for years? I was like, dude, don't be so grim. Turned out the market was terrible and fear greed was at 0. Fear greed is now at 20. Fear greed was now at 20. That was yesterday. Whatever the new reading is may wind up being lower. Now we have someone from the TikTok Nation. Welcome to the TikTok Nation. Asking about virtuals. Okay, well, here's what I can tell you about virtuals. There's a huge amount of support at 125. It's a LuxAlgo level. Okay, and there's support below that at 114. And what has happened in most of these big coins that have spiked, like Dash was the first one to do this, all the way up, all the way back down, build a base, and then really go. Virtuals has got to be next. It's got to be. The whole AI trade is, right? Virtuals, Tau. I mean, the AI trade has not been done in crypto. Virtuals is better than NVIDIA. I know that's crazy. I know about all the hardware build outs. I know that selling NVIDIA has always been stupid. However, virtuals, you know, has, you know, the give up trade in virtuals started at 138. Let me see if I can put this on the screen for our friends from TikTok, who, by the way, should be hitting the like and subscribe button over there. Don't be naughty. Don't be watching the stream without giving me some love. Okay. This is what I mean across the board. This is everywhere. So this is where the give up trade started from, right? Here's everyone giving up in virtuals on Binance. Yeah. Okay. And every time they hit virtuals, they're running into this support block. They're just bringing it back to where the give up trade started from. Okay. Now, I don't know if that made sense, but essentially virtuals has unwound all of the rampant liquidation bearishness and is now sitting, waiting for the next move, as are most likely a lot of other altcoins like XRP, like every dino form of money, like Decred, which is a Bitcoin fork with privacy, was up, according to the Eagle King, 90% at one point yesterday. And everybody on Twitter is whining that there's no alt season. Oh, there's an alt season going on. It's in dino coins. And what's the next dino coin to move? Okay, T-Bone is a big virtuals fan. He held on the way down. And then, you know, thanks to the virtual spike, we have a whole spike list that we publish in Patreon, which I would, you know, encourage you to jump on and check it out. Okay, T-Bone said he sold his gold. He sold gold to buy Solana when it was down. You know, they are paying you. They are paying you to think like a little bit like Warren Buffett with this market. They're saying, okay, you know what? Let's try to find max fear where people have gotten irrational, and then let's take it from them. Okay. Ribbita by Virtuals up big today after hitting support around 29 cents. TIBBIR. What goes up? I know I say this every day. What goes up? What no one understands, what no one likes, and no one knows how to buy. And it goes up even more if people just absolutely hate it, which is probably what Dash and Zcash are. They just hate it. And it just screamed higher. So if you have an idea and it's under the radar or people don't understand it, or it's like some oddball currency in, say, DPIN or AI, I say get after it. I say get after it. I mean, everything won't go up at once, but at the moment, people realize that, oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second. This was just like April. We just all sold it and we didn't know why we sold it. I mean, DPIN for normies, grass on Coinbase, sitting on its discount zone, completely dormant. There are so many altcoins. I know the market has recently gone down. There are so many altcoins that really kind of never went up to begin with. They never went up. Zach talking about Filecoin. Filecoin is top on our near-term buy list. I bought Filecoin, just so you know. Right now, Filecoin, like artificial superintelligence token, has done nothing. It's been liquidated. But again, Filecoin, like all these other coins, there's a 5-wave LuxAlgo bottom. There's DeMark signals. I mean, you could just pull up chart after chart after chart. It all looks the same. It all looks like a giant 5-wave bottom and a give up trade. Everyone just done. I'm out. And I can't say I blame people after what happened yesterday. But, you do have to like wake up and say, so what would it be like to be somebody with money in New York right now? I mean, what would that be like? Is any of that wealth on chain? How much wealth is on chain? It's just a question. I'm just asking a question, right? That alone could just drive the psychology. Now, what's he going to do? I don't know. It doesn't matter what he does. What matters is the discourse that goes back and forth between the left and the right. Is that going to get better or worse? Oh, I think we know the answer to that. And I think everything that comes out of their mouth is kind of like playing into this whole Ray Dalio model of the world. I love to give that guy a hard time because he's not into crypto as much as he should be. He was into gold. Gold ramped higher. He said you should have 15% of your portfolio in it, at which point Bridgewater dumped it, probably on all the people waiting to buy gold, literally standing in line to buy gold at the high, as Dalio was like, Bridgewater probably selling it to everybody. He hasn't heard a word about Bitcoin, like social disorder, all these things that he writes about in these books. Yeah. Okay, great. He's about to be right on all of it, which includes the banks, the lending, the printing the money, the confidence in sovereigns, geopolitical conflicts. The guy's about to be right about everything. And the reason he's not on the tape is probably because they're over there at Bridgewater hoovering up everybody's heave from yesterday as quietly as possible. And then you'll know when the forced selling is over and the big players are like, it's not going back below 100 again, near term or maybe ever. And we're just taking it all. I mean, at 99K a year ago, you would have been euphoric. 99K yesterday, you needed a 3-hour nap because it was so traumatic. Same price, better fundamental story. Last year, we were all being crazy. This year, there's like real reasons, and it's still scaring you. Don't tell me you're not looking at this. Don't tell me you're not scared. I know you're scared. You look at this, you're like, oh, S&P is unchanged. Oh, what's going to happen? Bitcoin is only up 1%. It can't really move. Like, is this going to crack again? I know that's what you're thinking, because I look at it and I go, oh God, is this going to make it? It's going to be fine. And even if I'm wrong, I continue to believe, and this is the bottom line, the day to talk about 200 is the day that it goes below 100. Gaseous Clay, good morning, as well as good morning to all of our Spartan members. Dude, DJG 24/7 is talking about ICP. Now, I knew ICP sounded familiar. We actually picked ICP out of the heap on a kind of random conversation we had about the Gann model picked it as a top coin after Amazon Web Services failed. And ICP doubled, right? Now, it didn't stay doubled, but that's your alt season, right? Goes from dormant to double. I like that. I'll use that, right? Alt season is from dormant to double. Then if it actually stays there because Bitcoin rallies, well, then everyone's going to go, you know, those privacy coins were actually the start of a bull market, as we had to listen to Twitter go, the cycle is over. Wah, 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 wah. Forget about your altcoins. Wah, 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 wah. Yeah, forget about the altcoins from last cycle, but what about the altcoins from this new move? What about that? You got to ask yourself, folks, you know, are you seeing the glass half full or half empty? You don't talk about 200 when Bitcoin's at 125. You talk about 200K when it's going through 100K and it looks like it's going to snap, and you're so nauseated you can't eat your Cheerios while you're looking at your P&L. That is the market update for today. Like button, people. Subscribe. We'll see you tomorrow.